Early on in Jane's life, she was greatly affected by John Reed. John was a spoiled young man whose mannerisms toward Jane reflected the typical British man. He treated women as if they were less than nothing. Most British women accepted this as their role in society, to be of a lower status than men. However, Jane did not enjoy the life of an outspoken woman and chose to stand up to John. This vital experience in her life led Jane to grow as a person. She would no longer let men assert themselves as having a higher status. Jane chose to stand up to these men and their misogynistic ways. When Jane was sent off to Lowood, Brocklehurst had a profound effect on Jane. Not only did Brocklehurst debase Jane, but he was also dishonest. He reinforced the lesson that John forced her to learn. When Brocklehurst was constantly calling her a liar and saying demoralizing things to Jane, she fought back. However, Jane learned a new lesson from Brocklehurst: how to deal with dishonest men. She confided in Miss Temple and Helen Burns. They helped her to combat Brocklehurst's dishonesty. Most of all, it taught Jane the valuable lesson of not completely trusting everyone around her. This lesson proved vital when Jane meets Rochester and St. John.
Mr. Rochester, the master of Thornfield Hall, charismatic and powerful, he had the greatest impact on Jane's life. A man of cold stature on the outside and a completely different person on the inside. A man who never experienced true love in his life. His passionate feelings toward Jane revealed a dark corner in his personality, a life full of deceit that decayed his soul into a con man of Jane's heart. Through her experience with Mr. Rochester, Jane learned the valuable lesson of the true meaning of love. Jane meets her soulmate inside Mr. Rochester. In the end, Jane's life, as well as Mr. Rochester's, is complete in the company of one another's arms. Later on in Jane's life, Jane's encounter with St. John would ultimately provide her with memories that would enable Jane to label St. John as one of the most deplorable men she met in her lifetime. He was always constantly trying to get her to do things his way. He wanted Jane to marry him regardless of her feelings for him. St. John even wanted Jane to uproot her life and move with him to India. From St. John's acts, Jane learned how to defiantly say no to the powerful men in her life. Jane was never the ideal Victorian Englishwoman. She was not as charming as Blanche Ingram, but on the contrary, she was an independent woman, a woman which all four men found hard to control, let alone forget. Jane Eyre was a plain but irresistible woman in her own right. Her overpowering independence and the feministic qualities of her personality led her back to the very man who started Jane on a journey to find her identity in the world, her dear master, Mr. Rochester.